Imagine if suddenly 4% of the able-bodied population just up and left the country, all of whom left jobs and work that needed to be done. That's what happened in 1917 when the U.S. joined World War I. And this was a time when the U.S. desperately needed tanks and guns built. But who was left to do it? That's right, the ladies. We left these in the kitchen, picked up these, and went to work. And that was just one of the major changes for the United States when we joined World War I. So in this video series, we're going to talk about the home front during World War I. That is, what was going on in the United States while our soldiers were away. This information can be found in Chapter 15, Section 2 of the Orange Book. We'll address Goal 8, Objective 3, assess the political, economic, social, and cultural effects of the war on the United States and other nations. Our essential question is, how did the government and the people of the United States prepare for war? In June 1917, Wilson finally declared war, and the U.S. entered World War I. The Great War had come to a violent stalemate in Europe, with men fighting in the trenches and neither side advancing. American doughboys arrived in Europe to relieve the exhausted Allies. Only a few months before, the U.S. government had begun preparing for war. It started by creating the War Industries Board, or the WIB, which gave government the regulation of industry in order to produce goods needed for war. Also, in 1917, they passed the Selective Service Act. Shortly after this, 9.6 million men registered for military service. With men going overseas, there became new opportunities for women and minorities. Jobs that were once filled by working white men were now available due to the war. Also, on the home front, there began a series of conservation efforts. This was so that we made sure we had enough supplies and resources available to supply our soldiers abroad with what they needed. These included the Gospel of the Clean Plate, which was something like meatless Mondays, wheatless Wednesdays, etc. The idea being that we ate less and conserved for soldiers abroad. Families were also encouraged to grow their own gardens at home, produce their own food independently. In addition, we adopted daylight savings time, and this was an effort to conserve coal and make better use of daylight. So as you know, in the spring, we turn our clocks forward so that we have more daylight hours. The government also sold Liberty bonds, which were increased taxes. Liberty bonds were a way that the government could borrow money from individuals. They encouraged people to buy these Liberty bonds with phrases like, "Only a friend of the Germans would refuse to buy a bond." And this is some of the war propaganda that was out during the time. You can see this is On the Job for Victory, Wartime Industries. And this is another one. Sow the seeds of victory. Plant and raise your own vegetables. Encouraging families to grow victory gardens. That's it for our first video. In our next video, we'll talk more about how the government used information and propaganda to sway the American public.